Yeah, turn the camera off, mate. That's fine.
And the hell is my... Actually, don't know how to... Okay, there we go.
Yeah, that's it.
Shit.
Okay, and welcome in to Global Cricket Radio. I'm Andrew McLean, and we're going to be looking back at the New Zealand-Bangladesh match. So this is actually the initial New Zealand cricket show, and I'm joined today on the show by Adam Bell, who is the host of the Cricketers podcast, which is a New Zealand-based podcast, and a very good one too, I might add. Probably Adam should do a few more of them, but he's had an adjustment in the family recently with a baby arriving a few months ago. But anyway, Adam, welcome to the show. Great to have you on board.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for the introduction. And yes, I can confirm having a baby is somewhat put the podcast to the side just for a moment.
Oh, well, not a problem. Just by way of background, I've known Adam for coming up on a year now. I was in Pakistan doing some commentary a year ago, and at the end of the series I spoke to Adam, which was at about 2 o'clock in the morning for Adam in New Zealand, and I guess it was, I don't know, around 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in Pakistan for me, and credit to Adam. We're on the line for forever, and then he managed to get the podcast out at about 4 o'clock in the morning. But those days are long gone for you now, Adam.
Yes, well, I mean, it's doing probably other things at 4 in the morning instead of podcast.
I have noticed the odd tweet come out at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, yeah, he's probably just opened his phone while he's attending to those duties that you have as a parent when you have a newborn. But anyway, so we're hoping to make this a regular thing, or as regular as possible, post-match reviews of New Zealand home fixtures. So that's why we're calling it the New Zealand Cricket Show. So I'm sitting in Bali, Indonesia, and Adam's in Hamilton in New Zealand. But let's just start with a very open question, Adam. What did you make of that performance by New Zealand and Bangladesh today at McLean Park in Napier?
Well, I mean, look, Napier's always been quite of an interesting ground for New Zealand cricket for many reasons. A lot of washouts at the ground. I think most New Zealand fans and probably the players right now probably wish this game today was washed out, to be honest, because it was really a non-event, I guess the series was wrapped up 2-0, but to lose in such a comprehensive manner, I think, is quite concerning for New Zealand cricket, especially because there is a lot of guys in the team today that are supposed to be part of, next generation or bring up to the next World Cup. Bangladesh, who have avoided, considered, say easy beats, but considered, a relatively easy proposition for most New Zealand teams at home. And to see the manner in which they were dispatched today and the type of cricket that was played by some of the Black Caps, I think I think for me it's concerning.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was listening to a little bit of the radio commentary on SENZ, and it was they were pretty critical, and Garth Galloway, of course, who's one of the commentators, who's a very good friend of mine. He's fairly circumspect in what he says, but some of the words that he was using were, indicated that there was a level of ineptitude by the Black Caps today, and it was mainly focused, himself and Jeremy Coney, talking about that New Zealanders, it's almost like they turned up, looked at the wicket and thought, okay, it looks a bit different to normal, but we'll just bat the same anyway. And then once they started losing a couple of wickets, I think they were 50 for 2 after 16 overs or thereabouts, they just had to assess the conditions and just bat in a different way, but they didn't seem to be able to do that. And, to crumble for less than 100 probably says a lot about their thought processes. I don't know what's your opinion on that?
I absolutely agree. I mean, you've got to think about the shots that, Henry Nicholls playing, a poor pull shot. Ravindra looked a little tentative early on. Obviously, the pitch was a little bit spicy. And then, Will Young got himself out when he was set. It's hard to really blame someone like Will Young because he's had such a great series to date. But, I think today losing those two early wickets gave the New Zealand middle order a bit of an opportunity to get some batting under their belts. And I feel those guys in that middle to lower order haven't done themselves much of a favour. I think Tom Blundell, will look at the series as an opportunity missed. He's such a great test player for New Zealand. And he's been so consistent over the last few years after coming in the test side for BJ Watling. But I think in one day cricket, it's kind of shown that he's not really suitable for the format. And a lot of people have spoken about his lack of list A record to date, but we've always kind of papered over that by saying, well, yeah, but look at his test record. But I think this series for me has probably put the nail in his ODI coffin. Mark Chapman, I feel a little bit sorry for because he really hasn't had a lot of batting over the last, month or so. Josh Clarkson on, his first series as well. But I think the responsibility for this game has to be on your experience guys. Henry Nicholls and Tom Latham. Tom Latham did it in the very first game, but unfortunately struggled in this game. And as I said, Tom Blundell at this moment is not an international cricketer in one-day international cricket.
Well, there's also the question mark of his position in the order, and I'll come back to that point in a minute. But just for those that didn't see the match, I'll just run through the New Zealand scorecard. It's a pretty sorry-looking scorecard. It has to be said, with New Zealand having first use of the wicket. But of course, Bangladesh saw the wicket when they won the toss. They elected to field. So, yeah, Will Young, he made 26. He was the top scorer. Rachin Ravindra was out for 8. Henry Nicholls for 1. Tom Latham 21. Tom Blundell 4. Mark Chapman 2. Josh Clarkson 16. Adam Milne 4. Aditya Ashok 10. Jacob Duffy was 1 not out, and William O'Rourke 1, and just the 4 extras. So pretty sorry looking scorecard, but some pretty handy bowling figures for Bangladesh. Sharaful Islam, of course, who's didn't really play much of a role in the Bangladesh Test series because the spinners bowled most of the overs there back in November and start of December. He had 3 for 22 off 7. Tanzim Saqib, he had 3 for 14 off 7. And then the other big wicket taker was Sumya Saka. He's had 3 for 18. So, yeah, not a great scorecard by New Zealand, and Bangladesh chasing 99. They knocked the runs off just losing the 1 wicket, 99 for 1. Saka made 4. And before he retired hurt actually, and then the only wicket to fall was Anamul Haq. He was caught Blundell, bowled O'Rourke for 47, and I guess the main standout was the captain Shanto, unbeaten on 51. So a complete drubbing by New Zealand, and I think complete drubbing of New Zealand by Bangladesh, and I think I heard on the radio that in terms of balls remaining in an innings, I think New Zealand was right up there with their worst ever loss or something like that. So pretty horrendous. But just going back to that point about Tom Blundell, I mean, it sort of indicates what sort of side New Zealand's put out, where you've got in the middle order Tom Latham batting at 4, who's 1 place above where he normally bats. Tom Blundell batting at 5, which is sort of no man's land for him. But, I mean, is that any excuse, Adam? Looks like Adam, we might just have lost Adam there. Let's just see what's going on. I think he sent me a message. Okay. So I just have to bear in mind there, bear with us there. I'll just see if I can get Adam back on the line. Anyway, so yeah, pretty bad performance by by New Zealand with the bat. I think Adam's back now. I can hear him there. Adam, I was just saying that the fact that Tom Latham's batting at 4 and Tom Blundell's batting at 5 indicates it's probably not the strongest lineup. Chapman at 6. But do you think that's any excuse? I mean, New Zealand's decided to rest a few players. Do you see that as any excuse? That's strange. I can hear Adam in the background, sure enough, but the voice isn't coming through. So we'll just bear in mind there. See where Adam gets to, and yeah, not great bowling by New Zealand either, it must be said. Adam Milne, 4 overs, no maidens, none for 18. Not too bad, but no wickets, of course. New Zealand needed some early wickets to even make a run of this match. Jacob Duffy, 5 overs, 5 overs, no maidens, none for 27. Josh Clarkson, he only got to bowl the 2 overs, none for 19. William O'Rourke, 4 overs, no maidens, 1 for 33. And Aditya Ashok just bowled the 1 ball. So Adam, are you back there? Can you hear me coming through now?
I am back. I don't know where I went, but I'm definitely back.
Just maybe just adjust your mic there slightly, Adam. It's just coming through quite loudly. But so I guess the question I was asking is, the New Zealand batting lineup certainly nowhere near full strength, with Nicholls coming in probably 1 place higher, Latham 1 place higher, Blundell, I don't really remember him batting at 5 for New Zealand. He bats at 6 or 7 in tests. Do you think there's any excuse for this performance by New Zealand? Looks like we've just having a little bit of a problem with Adam Bell there. But anyway, tremendous effort by Bangladesh again, it has to be said. New Zealand hadn't lost an ODI in New Zealand since 2019, I think I read earlier today. So, to beat New Zealand and to knock them over so cheaply and then knock off the runs with no problems whatsoever, whilst it's very easy to criticise New Zealand for playing bad shots and all that type of thing, it's not like Bangladesh had any problems when they went out to bat, and New Zealand only batted for 31 overs, so you can't really say the pitch was an issue or anything like that. It was a day game. There was no other, the action occurred during the day, so there's no reason why New Zealand should have performed so badly, but Bangladesh made the best of the conditions, which was mentioned in commentary many, many times, and those bowling figures reflect that, and perhaps New Zealand needed to adjust their batting approach somewhat, because at one point they were 2 for 58 after 16, which, on a tricky wicket, it's not a bad position to be in, but then to fall over so badly like that is pretty awful. Okay, right, I think we got Adam back again now.
I am back.
Oh, great. So I just wanted to ask you, Adam, with the batting lineup the way it is, I mean, you'd say that Will Young and Rachin Ravindra are a natural opening pair. Of course, Devon Conway's being rested for this series. But after that, you've got Henry Nicholls probably batting 1 place too high. Tom Latham normally bats at 5. He batted at 4 today. Tom Blundell, I don't ever really remember him batting at number 5. And Mark Chapman at 6. I mean, despite that, do you think that's any excuse for New Zealand's performance today? Not people batting out of position and being a slightly under strength.
I don't, because I think there's plenty of experience in that team. Obviously Henry Nicholls, Tom Latham, Tom Blundell, and Mark Chapman now play lots of international cricket. I think it's really showing that there's a little bit of a soft underbelly with some of the reserve players, and how much we really need, obviously Daryl Mitchell, Conway, and Kane Williamson. I think Tom Blundell, unfortunately, has shown that he's not an ODI player. there were a lot of calls before the World Cup about him, making the team, and he's had a lot of support from fans thinking that he could be the answer in ODI cricket. But I think as his list A record shows, it's not his format. And as great as he has been in Test cricket for New Zealand, I don't think at this point he is an ODI player. Henry Nicholls, he's the player that really polarizes fans in this country as well. And I think he's shown that he's not a number three. His moderate success in ODI cricket has generally been around the 5-6 mark. He obviously had an opportunity opening the batting in the 2019 World Cup, but even then he never really cemented himself at the top of the order. So I do think that though some of the players were put in different positions, I think there was enough experience, especially at home against Bangladesh, to perform better than what they did today.
Just on the Bangladeshi performance, what I mean, you were there, you're watching it on the television presumably, and there's some pretty decent bowling figures in there. What did you make of their bowling actually, and what have you made of it during the series so far?
Look, I think Bangladesh have really shown improvement in the series, and they've actually shown, even in the last few years, how much their cricket's improved. We only have to look back at the Test series that they played against New Zealand a few weeks ago, when they won the first Test and were had New Zealand on the ropes in the second Test. I think they've really gained a lot of confidence, but to perform so well away from home for them would give them a lot of confidence moving forward. I think in the very first game, they had New Zealand in a tricky situation in that abbreviated game, but they didn't quite take their opportunities. They had, Tom Latham dropped early on, and if they would have taken Tom Latham, who knows how that game would have panned out in terms of New Zealand's batting innings. They bowled on a very flat pitch in Nelson, but I thought their batsmen were superb. Somasaka, with his 160 odd was fantastic, and even today with the ball, he was exceptional. So I think Bangladesh as well as a unit, I think they've really improved with some of their more well established players not on this tour, such as Shakib Al Hassan and Taman Iqbal and a few others. So I think and Mahmudullah as well. So they've really performed exceptionally in these 3 ODI matches. I think in regards to the bowlers, I think there's a lot of promise there. And today, I thought they bowled superbly. I thought they really troubled New Zealand batsmen. Sure, there were some poor shots by the New Zealand batsmen, in particular Henry Nicholls with that pull shot, and also Will Young getting caught at point. But you take away those kind of shots, it was built on pressure, and I think Shaful Islam has been exceptional, and I think Tanzim Sakib is really showing that he's got a lot of talent, and they're both very young guys. So, and the future is really promising for Bangladeshi cricket.
Well, it is interesting, isn't it, as a New Zealander? And I'll be honest, I haven't been following the series that closely because I don't live there, and I've had a few other things on, such as watching Indonesia against Philippines yesterday, which was a nice experience. I haven't been that close to it, but what I have been following is people being left out. Conway was obviously rested for the entire series, all of the series, and I can totally understand why he needed a rest. He just he's just had a bad run lately, basically, and I had a look at his actual schedule. I mean, he's pretty much been playing cricket the whole year. And so it just made sense for him to be rested. But other players, like you say, Mitchell's being rested as well. Obviously, a big workload. Kane Williamson's being rested. Cole Jamieson's being rested. But actually, as you just pointed out, so have some of the Bangladeshi big players been rested as well. So it is mightily impressive by Bangladesh. And we all still think back to that match at Mount Maunganui, which New Zealand lost the Test match, which no one could really believe. All of the fans could believe it too, because we all of us knew that it was going to turn, and they decided to leave Ajaz Patel out of the side, even though he was coming off 10 wickets in an innings in India, not a month or so earlier. But speaking of Mount Maunganui, there's going to be 2 games in this. What's going to be we're going to switch to T20s, and the first one's in Napier again. That's going to be on the 27th, and then there's 2 matches in Mount Maunganui on the Friday the 29th, and then one on New Year's Eve at also at Mount Maunganui. So that's Mount Maunganui, not so far away from where you are, Adam. Do you think you might get along to one of them?
Possibly. Possibly. I mean, I know it's going to be pretty hot in New Zealand around that time as well. So, I think the conditions could really suit Bangladesh actually. And I was actually thinking about this in terms of venues where teams from the subcontinent would like to play New Zealand in all formats, and I think the Mount would be probably the venue that would suit teams from Asia the best. And you mentioned about Bangladesh beating New Zealand at the Bay Oval, a year or so ago, and I remember when Pakistan played New Zealand here, and Pakistan had, probably pushed New Zealand quite hard in that first test. So I think it's a venue that would suit subcontinent teams just due to the fact that it's a very dry track. The conditions are very dry over there, and you get a bit of that sea breeze as well. So I think that if Bangladesh were to beat New Zealand in these T20s, I think the Mount or Bay Oval would be probably the place for them to make a big statement.
Just for our international listeners out here on Global Cricket Radio, we keep referring to Mount Maunganui. It's not a city as such. It's a part of a city called Tauranga, as I once heard on Big League football, Big League soccer back in the day, when the listener wrote in and Brian Moore said he was from Taranga. Anyway, but it's in the Bay of Plenty, and it's a big holiday destination, so that's why they play a lot of cricket around the Christmas and New Year period in Tauranga. And Mount Maunganui is a lovely beach there with a little mount, as it suggests, and it's a great place to go. I haven't been there for quite a while myself, but a great place. And of course New Zealand's actually built up a big training facility there. I think they've got 20 odd nets or something. It's pretty big. Have you ever checked that out, Adam?
I actually haven't, to be honest. I haven't been to the Mount for a few years. I actually used to live over there for a while, but I actually haven't been over to the Mount for a few years. I think the last game I went for would have been when New Zealand played Pakistan in 2020. So it's been a little while actually.
Yeah, well, speaking of Pakistan, I mean, you've got a bit of an affiliation with that particular nation through your wife, she's a British Pakistani, isn't she?
Yes, she is a British Pakistani. That's what she would describe herself as. Yeah.
Right, but somehow you've managed to lure her to Hamilton. But anyway, that's kind of by the by. But Pakistan, of course, is the next side to tour New Zealand, and this was slotted in fairly late on. But there's a 5-match ODI series coming up. One question I have for you, Adam, what's your opinion on New Zealand playing, a 5-match T20 series? So it's not tests, it's not particularly high profile. It's right in the middle of our premier T20 competition, the Super Smash.
It's a very good question. I mean, generally, New Zealand's top players play much Super Smash anyway, so that's probably a bit of a side issue. I think with the T20 World Cup coming up in June, I think that there is a need to get some quality T20 internationals under the belt. I know New Zealand's playing against Bangladesh, but I think most people would concede that Pakistan are a very, very good T20 side. I think we've also got to look at the commercial realities of playing a side like Pakistan, who have got a massive population. They love their cricket, as you know, and there's an opportunity for New Zealand cricket to make money by playing international cricket, and that's where they make money. And I think this T20 competition probably serves 2 purposes: gives New Zealand players opportunity to get ready for the T20 World Cup, and also as a venture to make money for New Zealand cricket. And I think with the series that's going to be after that series, and then it'll be the Test series against South Africa, which will be against a weakened South African side. I think in some ways this T20 series becomes a lot more interesting than maybe what it would have normally been.
True. And I did think that New Zealand Cricket's press release saying that Kane Williamson and Kyle Jamieson have been taken out of the New Zealand T20 squad to play Bangladesh, which is coming up just after Christmas. But then they go on to say it was made following medical advice and consideration of the team's upcoming schedule with a focus on the Summers Test series against South Africa and Australia. That suggests to me that they might not be playing against Pakistan either. And what I'm interested to know, Adam, is Kyle Jamieson's, we know, has had all sorts of problems, as has Kane Williamson. But in Kane's situation, I'm starting to really wonder what New Zealand cricket's not saying about his knee, actually.
Yeah, I mean, look. Obviously, knee injuries can be something, especially ACL injuries, something that plague players, for their careers, and they can be ongoing issues. It is a major injury, and we did rush him back quickly for the World Cup as well. A lot of ACLs are 6 to 9 months of recovery, but we look at Kane's recovery. He made it. I think he got injured in April when he was in the New Zealand World Cup squad. What late October, early November. So I think it kind of just shows you that he still probably isn't quite 100%. And I think they're trying to probably ensure that he doesn't re-injure it, which I think is fair enough. I think it's about workload management at this point. He's also had a highly documented injury, which has been his elbow. And I think there's probably some concerns around that, but I think as players get older, there's a lot of management around their injury issues, and I think resting him for a series, to be honest, T20 series, I don't think is a big deal. I think we all know that the series against South Africa and Australia are more important in the greater scheme of things. Kane Williamson, we know, will slot into the New Zealand T20 side, no trouble at all. But we need him available for the 4 tests, because if New Zealand were to lose those tests, it puts them in a lot of pressure for the series after that, and it puts them behind in the WTC. So I think they are prioritising what they see is the pinnacle event of the summer, which I have no problems with, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that actually. I think it's probably right. And also, of course, for that series, we've got the option of bringing back Devon Conway. He can fit in anywhere in the order, basically, and Daryl Mitchell, of course, too. So I don't see that as a problem. You mentioned a weakened South African side coming up, and I'd be quite keen to talk about that, but I think we might do that on the next episode, because I'm really annoyed about that, actually. Who's going to come from South Africa, given that Dean Elgar's just retired as well. But that's pretty much all we've got time for today, Adam. And really just want to wish you and Tasmeen, your wife, and everyone back home in New Zealand a very Merry Christmas, and enjoy the holiday period. And we'll catch up sometime between Christmas and New Year to look at this Bangladesh T20 series.
Absolutely, and look at the cricket world at the moment. It doesn't sleep, does it? I mean, there's the Boxing Day test coming up on the 20, or obviously on the 26th. You've got, I think, India versus South Africa is on. There's Big Bash that's going on. There's Super Smash going on. There's New Zealand against Bangladesh. There's cricket everywhere right now. So it's a great time to have some holiday, that's for sure.
Well, I'll be going along to the second T20 between Indonesia and Philippines tomorrow at the Bali Oval, so looking forward to that. But anyway, that was me, Andrew McLean, joined by my co-host Adam Bell, looking back at the third one-day international between New Zealand and Bangladesh. That's all we've got for today on the New Zealand